In this video, let's look at the process for computing average of n numbers. We'll look at the algorithm and pseudocode for computing average when we have a list of numbers where the length of the list could be arbitrary. This is the sort of functionality that you would actually need to build in applications. The first order of business is to pick a data structure to represent our list of numbers. We'll pick arrays because they're easy to work with and understand at this point. Here you can see 3 arrays, each with a different set of numbers. But the key thing to note here is the length of these arrays, shown here as 5, 3, and 6 respectively. This clearly means that the list could contain an arbitrary number of elements to work with, and our algorithm and pseudocode should be smart enough to adapt to this requirement. In the algorithm, we'll begin by accepting a list of numbers first. Next, we'll determine and store the length of the list in a variable named len. Programming languages offer mechanisms to determine the number of elements in data structures such as arrays. Next, we'll initialize a variable named sum and set it to 0 as its initial value. In step 4, we'll start looping over the list, and at every iteration, we'll reset the value of sum as sum plus the current number from the list. This way, we are accumulating numbers as we add them together. You can use this process for computing the sum of arbitrary numbers as well. In step 5, we will compute the average by dividing sum by the value in the variable len, which represents the number of items in the list. This gives us the average, which we can then display back to the user. As pseudocode, we'll build a function that accepts an array. Then we'll initialize a variable named sum and set it to 0. We'll also set len as the length of the array. Next, we are using a for loop to run through the array as we accumulate the sum. Finally, we'll compute the average by dividing sum by len. Here I'm using the division operator. This is then returned back to the caller. So when we use this function, we can call it with arbitrary arrays, and it would work and give us back the average value. Simple, right? And you can see how loops can be effectively used in this case as well. Okay, one last problem to solve. Let's see what FizzBuzz is all about.